Hi, I'm William Stewart. Welcome back to our verse-by-verse study on the book of Galatians. We're in chapter 6 in a wonderful section where Paul is detailing to the Galatians how to handle problems in the body of Christ in terms of work and caring for ourselves. And he started at the beginning of the chapter saying we should care for those who are spiritually troubled and come alongside to them and help support them in gentleness, being careful so we're not sucked in or tempted by their sin for ourselves. He then says that we also bear one another's burdens and not to be haughty, also in the body of Christ. In our verses today, verses 4 and 5, he continues this train of thought in good verses. He says in verse 4, "But let every man prove his own work, and then shall he have rejoicing in himself alone and not in another." Verse 5, "For every man shall bear his own burden." So what is Paul saying here? Well, interesting, a great word, prove his own work. Prove is the Greek word. Remember, the New Testament was written in Greek, dokimazo. And it's a military word indicating that when a Greek hoplite, the infantry soldier of ancient Greece, they were very effective, were in line of battle, he had colleagues to the left and the right of him in the battle line. He wanted them to be dokimatsu, or proven. He didn't want a weakling next to them, so he might be blindsided by a enemy getting through his colleague to him while he had his own fight occurring. But he wanted a proven soldier who would keep the enemy off his flank so he could fight his own man. So it says that we should prove or bear out our own work to ourselves. And then a person can have rejoicing for the work that he does for himself alone. Why is this important? Well, for each of us, we need to have an expertise, a job, a trade that we can practice, that we can not only care for ourselves and our family and rejoice over that, but also the quality of work that we do and know that we're not dependent on other people. So there's a identity there, and so that also provides elements of leadership in terms of how to handle business and how to handle the trade, that you can teach others and bring that experience into the church and perhaps use those skills to help to lead the church as well. So it's as an individual, it's a very important characteristic to develop, as opposed to somebody who is dependent on other people completely, economically and emotionally, who don't really contribute to the vitality of the body of Christ, either emotionally, spiritually, or economically. So in verse 5, every man should bear his own burden. Our burden is for us primarily to bear, take, and do. We're not to be dependent on other people unless we really have to. Otherwise, we should care for ourselves, we should care for our families, and only in the case of mental health problems, physical health problems by disease or an accident, where we can't do that, should we be dependent on others in the church to come along and help us. So very important principles for a sustainable, independent, functioning church body that can spread the word of Christ and then help those few people inside the church and help others outside the church do better, and thus helping the community at large as well. Okay, good points. Thanks for joining me today. We'll continue this section again next time. Please come back and join me. I'll look forward to seeing you then.